So, what do we as, like, I represent the communications committee here for the Mercer County Democrats. What do we as a party or even as a group of private citizens do to get the word out to not only fellow Democrats who seem to be a little disappointed in how strong things or how badly things have gone as opposed to what we thought how strongly it was going to go, and those independents who seem to be wavering and don't understand this, and they're getting misinformation. What do we do to correct this problem?
It's tough to break through when you have news corporations like Fox, who really is nothing more than a wing of the Republican
And they proved that when they donated $1 million
to the Republican Governors Association. And they finally had to admit that they did it. And Rupert Murdoch and Roger Ailes, yeah, they're real friendly to ordinary people.
And the Saudi Arabian, don't forget him.
Look, I think what we as Democrats have got to do is just, I said to our Democratic caucus, I said, look, voters get it. But we have to give it to them in very straightforward language and say, look, in this election, this is a very clear choice. They had the House before 4 years passed, before we took it over. What happened? You had a war that shouldn't have been started. It cost us $1 trillion. Thousands of our best men and women gave everything they had and lost their lives, and people were injured and maimed. You want to turn the keys back to the same people who, again, want to do the budget, want to do the tax breaks for the wealthiest people, who the only thing they did before we got here was name post offices after dead people and fund a war that was every dime of it borrowed from China? Or do you want a Congress? I mean, they elected us for change. Remember? This is the whole change thing. Look, I'm not saying everything we've done is popular with everybody, but it's a stark contrast. If Mr. Schilling wins this race, let me tell you, he'll want to repeal the health care bill. That may sound good to some people. But again, the people we just talked about. He wants to give tax breaks at $100,000 a clip to the wealthiest people in this country. I don't. And I think what we've got to do as Democrats is talk to ordinary people and say, this is what this election's all about. This is not an election about really Phil Hare versus Bobby Schilling. You know, our names are on the ballot. This is a question of who do you want to represent you on things that matter to you. You know, every month this year, we have had job growth. When the president took over, we were hemorrhaging at 786,000 jobs the first month he took over. Ever since then, we've had job growth every month this year. Look, it takes some time, but these are the very same people who put us in the hole, and now they want to take the keys and give it to the people that ran us in the ditch.
And not only that, they're right now bragging that if they win this election,
they're going right back to where they were.
And they're going to shut down the government. They are proud to say that. Now, I understand, again, the anger, like you were professing to, that there are people angry at the government because it seems to go nowhere and not give the results they want.
Here's why I think people are angry. If you're a senior citizen and you see people talking about giving $100,000 to some rich guy and they can't get $20 a month, of course they're mad. If you're an unemployed construction worker and you're trained to build roads and bridges and highways, and here's a highway bill in the committee, and the Republicans are threatening to filibuster it and not even coming up with plans to help us fund the bill to put 6 million Americans back to work. Well, if you're that construction worker, you're angry. You're angry because you expect your government to be responsive to you. If you're a veteran, when you come back from Iraq or Afghanistan, you expect the best health care. We've done that. We've increased it. But that came under our watch, by the way. The largest increase in veterans' benefits in 77-year history of the VA. That didn't happen because the other side proposed a $2 million cut in the budget for veterans' prosthetics, for artificial arms and legs. So if you're a veteran and you can't get a job, and you're a senior and you can't get a cost of living, and you're fearful, and that's what I think a lot of this anger is. It's generated by fear, and then you couple that with imbeciles, and that's the nicest thing I could say about a Glenn Beck. I told the black community that I was talking to at the NAACP picnic, I find it so insulting that this maniac, he's really a deliverer of hate and fear, and stokes it. And here's this guy talking about on the steps of the Lincoln Memorial, and he says, "Oh, I didn't know it was the day of Martin Luther King." You know what I told the crowd? I said, the man is either an idiot, which I think he is, or he can't read a calendar and needs to go back to first grade. He knew exactly what he was doing. And the black community and every American ought to stand up to this kind of nonsense. I mean, this is the same Glenn Beck who had the unmitigated gall. He calls the president, he was on the birther thing, calls the president a racist, and then Beck supporter says, oh, he never said that, even though you're taping me, it's on tape. So sometimes when you even show it to them, I mean, I think they're so caught up in this whole Beckism, or Limbaugh, who has said some of the most hateful, racist things I've ever seen, and yet nobody takes him off the air. Why? Because people are buying into that, and he's preying on people at a very bad time in their lives.
Plus, he's being paid to say those things.
Well, here's a guy who, by the way, never got, the only job he ever had was when his dad gave it to him. And here's a guy who fought addictions, and I give him credit for that. But the very same guy that doesn't want the same type of breaks for ordinary people, and he wants to continue to fuel and to stoke the anger and the hatred and the fear that people have out there. And I will tell you, I don't know how the guy literally, I'm serious, people like he and Beck can go to bed at night and get a decent night's sleep, because a lot of what they say is absolute lies. It's just not factual.
Well, that's what the drugs are for.
Yeah.
At any rate, thank you very much.
You're
I don't mean
welcome,
to monopolize your time.
No. But I would just tell you, to give you one, I would say what I told our caucus is when members go back to their districts, and the president's Treasury Secretary, Tim Geithner, was talking to us, and he's talking about the stock market and the GDP and all this stuff. And I got up after Mr. Secretary Geithner and I said, Mr. Secretary, with all due respect to you, the people in my district, when they get up in the morning and they're having breakfast with their husband or wife, and they are having a tough time paying their bills, putting their kids through school, they may not have health insurance. I don't think the conversation goes like this. Dear, I know things are really tough, haven't worked for a while, and we're on the verge of maybe not putting the kids through school or not being able to keep the house, but hey, how about that GDP? It's the JOB. And that's what we, if you honestly, have got to go back and tell people that for ordinary people who are swimming upstream in a recession, it is the JOB. The GDP means nothing to them. And it's a great statistic, and it's great to be able to say gross domestic product, but who the heck knows what that means in the lives of ordinary people?
Especially since part of it involves the bombs that are being made that have to be replenished every time you drop
and this is a great county with great people that work very, very hard on both sides. And I think at the end of the day, I think we'll be okay. But it's tough because you are going up against 24. Politics has changed a lot.
Yeah.
We never had the 24-hour Fox News. Right? You didn't have the Beck, and you had Limbaugh for a while, but not to this degree. And then now you got Sean Hannity and Sarah Palin, and they just keep piling it on. And a guy like Mike Castle that just lost the other day in the primary. I know Mike. I served with him on Ed and Labor. What a nice guy, a really decent, moderate guy. And this woman that ran, she claims that, and your viewers got to hear this one because they think I'd make this up. She claims that in stem cell research, that they have injected mice, and mice now have human brains. Now, this person wants to be in the United States Senate. That, my friend, is very scary for this nation, because that woman she's way out there. I mean, and that's my point. I think because of the anger and guys like Mike Castle, when he got beat, I saw him on the floor the next day, and I said, Mike, I'm sorry you lost. He went, I am too, but he said, what about my state? And what about this country? Yeah. So there's a lot at stake here. We just got to keep pushing and not be fearful. At the end of the day, what's the worst that happens to Phil Hare? November 2nd comes and I lose. Look, I've got a great family, a new granddaughter. I'm in a good position in my life, okay? But it's the people of this district who deserve roads and bridges and things of that nature that help make their lives better, and somebody to stand up for them. And I'll tell you, Schilling in the guy, not from what I've heard.
Well, thank you very much, and we'll certainly get the word out for you as much as we can.
I appreciate that.
And we'll see you in November on the
there.
victory laps there.
Okay, thanks. I sure hope so.